All right, friends, this is Alex from the future. The video that you're about to watch, I'm about 95% done editing this. And there's a couple things I wanted to point out before you dive into this. First off, this is a little bit different style interview than we've done here. On this channel, I mean, we're always striving to bring content that is fresh, it's different, and it's going to be entertaining for you. This particular interview, if you like this style of an interview where basically we track down people that are going on some pretty cool adventures, and it might be their rig or where they're going, and we share their story with you, interview questions, or basically get them jibber-jabbering about the trip, some challenges that they may face and all that other fun stuff, and get to know the rig that they're heading up with. If you like this style interview, let me know in the comments down below. We'll keep bringing more of these up as well. But anyway, the gentleman that I'm about to interview here, which you'll find out, which actually I think I probably put it in the headline of this. Anyways, so he's taken a brand new rig that he just put together, and he's taken it up to the Arctic for 5 weeks. Freaking badass. Anyways, I've been in communication with him since our interview, so you want to stay tuned to the end of the interview because he's been sending me photos and some videos, some wildlife, some crazy stuff that he's seen. And incidentally, we're going to have a subsequent interview when he gets back. He's been taking a lot of video and taking some photos, and things haven't gone quite as planned with regards to road closures and just some crazy stuff that he's seen along the way. So you'll definitely want to stay tuned for that. But that said, hey, enjoy the interview, and don't forget to stay tuned at the end of the clip to see some actual photos and video from Bob's trip. What is happening, and welcome to another four-wheel drive talk episode. And friends, I promise you today is going to be one hell of a show. You see, a couple weeks ago, actually it might have been 3 weeks ago, I was out in Ontario?
Rancho Cucamonga,
visiting So-Cal Teardrops. Now, while I was out there looking at all these badass trailers, this guy behind me, we hit it off because he has this badass truck here, and it turns out he's taking this rig up to the Arctic. So we hit it off, and this was too good of a story not to pass up to be able to share with you guys. So friends, today I'm going to be interviewing Bob Anderson. Bob, it is great to meet you. Thank you for taking
Alex.
Time out of your schedule. And to start things off, Bob, you know, I was going to ask you, tell us a little bit about the rig here, but if we can open up with, share with the listeners a little bit about who you are.
Sure. So I'm actually a contractor. I live in Fountain Valley here. I've been trailering, tenting for 40 years. Graduated to a pop-up trailer back in 2004, 2005, when my youngest was born. And we've been camping and trailering, like I said, for 40 years. And the trailering is fairly new for us, the last 18 years or so. And yeah, we love it. We love getting out in the wilderness. My favorite spot in the world is the Redwoods. It is, it's like a home for me. It's spiritual, it's grounding. You can let everything go that is in the world that's going on today.
Wow, so 40 years, you are one hell of an overland veteran. And if I understand you correctly, so you're talking about pop-ups. You're almost, it was like an evolution.
It was.
From pop-ups to, now you had, which we'll get into this in a moment, you had a, like a camper style.
I did. It was a North Star pop-up camper, mostly hard-sided, just the top popped, on an F-250 diesel big truck that so I went from the pop-up trailer. I actually had that one before they had off-road trailers. I had them roll the axle, put big off-road tires on it. Our first trip was down to Muley in Baja and spent Christmas on the beach. So yeah, that was a lot of fun with a one-year-old and my older kids.
All right, Bob, so that sounded like a pretty badass rig that you had. Tell us a little bit, what do we have here?
So this is a 2021 Bronco Wild Track with the Sasquatch package on it, and with a few modifications, obviously. Yeah. So all in preparation for this upcoming trip.
Wow.
wanted to do it, but it was a push to get it done so that I would have it ready for this trip.
Now, this is a little different vehicle than what you were driving before. So do you have any, what stands out the most for you from going from a much larger vehicle, diesel, to smaller, gas, more nimble, I'm guessing?
Yes. The pluses are, it is much more nimble, it's easy to get around, you can go day exploring. The gas is more of an issue up in the north. Diesel is much more prevalent.
Okay.
Yeah, it's harder to find gasoline than it is diesel. Diesel is because it used to be an ice road that I'm taking only. You can only do it in the winter. And just like another trip that I took, but they've created it back in 2017 to a year-round road.
Wow.
And so it gets some, there's a small hamlet, a small town up there, and they do have diesels that will run this road. Used to be just during the winter, but now it's summer, so diesel is easier to get than the gas. However, the gas is still, it's pretty readily available.
Wow.
So
now, talk to me a little bit about this.
So this is a 2022 SoCal Teardrop trailer that it's the 511 XS is what it's called. Designed for off-road. It's about 90% hand-built right there at their shop. They do an amazing job. It's a perfect vehicle for what I do.
This thing looks like a stinking tank.
Yeah, it really is.
So Bob, I want to circle back to this. You're heading up to the Arctic tomorrow. I mean, we're talking, it's 2 o'clock right now today. You're heading off in how many hours?
15 hours.
15 hours. Now, how long of a drive is that up there?
So round trip, the route that I'm taking is about 9,000 miles. It's probably about 186 hours of road time. Wow. But I'm coming back a different route where I'll catch a couple of ferries through the south tip of Alaska. So it's a 5-week journey.
Wow. So when you take on a trip like this, what is your goal in terms of, day one? How many, for example, how many miles do you have a goal set in terms of how many miles you want to accomplish each day, or is it kind of go at will, should we say? So
the first 3 days, actually, I'm going with a buddy of mine, a childhood best friend of mine, and he is actually going up to the Canadian border and then flying home. So it'll be the first 3 days. So those days are pretty mapped out. And the first day we're going to Cave Lake, which is in eastern Nevada. Second day is up in Stoddard in Idaho. And then the third day will be up in near Flathead Lake.
Wow. So
near Glacier.
How many miles roughly per day are we looking at here?
So it's about 8 hours of driving a day.
Okay, that's
give or take. So
now with the trailer here, what's your typical cruising speed that you're pulling with this thing?
So, well, we're going to find out because I just got this and I have not had time to really road test it. I've tried a little bit here and there, and the Bronco pulls it fantastic. The power of that V6 twin turbo 2.7 liter, just no problem pulling it.
So once you get into Canada, from there, oh shit, dude,
that's getting close.
You know what, friends, we are sitting next to a golf field here, and this is the second time what we're chuckling about here. There's a pink golf ball no more than 8 feet behind the camera here, and we were just talking to some other gentlemen that just came by here, and their ball was right here as well. So either you or I are likely going to get hit by a golf ball before this interview's done.
Yep, it won't be the first time for me.
So going back to this here, when you get into Canada, do you have as much of a syllabus or kind of a route planned?
I have a very rough route.
Okay.
Kind of going into Calgary, Alberta, the territory of Alberta, and then from Calgary I'm cutting over through Banff, and I want to spend some time in Banff, and then I'll head towards Vancouver, and there's a certain point where I'll cut north again and then come back over into the eastern side of British Columbia and get onto the Alcan Highway, or the old Alaska Highway.
Sure.
For a short distance.
So, if my mapping my head's correct, you're not going necessarily shortest distance, because Calgary's over here, then you're cutting over to Vancouver over there, so that's
correct. And the reason is Banff. I was in Banff in 2018, which I'll share a little bit about that later, but it was something that was almost as much as the Redwoods are to me.
Wow.
It was amazing, absolutely an amazing place.
For many photographers, Banff is considered one of those bucket list places to go and so forth.
I can see why.
So you make it over to Vancouver. From there you head north, of course.
Yeah, so I won't go all the way to Vancouver. It's probably 2/3 of the way to Vancouver, and then I head north. And I don't have that highway off the top of my head. I've got it mapped out, but once I get into Canada, it's kind of loose. I've got a general idea. I did that last time I went and didn't follow it.
Sure.
My buddy went with me the first trip, and he had never seen the Redwoods. So we went up Highway 5, and first night made it to Redding. He said he'd never seen the Redwoods, so I backtracked and we cut across and went up the Coast Highway.
You know what's funny? This whole time you're talking about the Redwoods, I'm thinking Redwoods in California.
They are. The first trip that I took was, we went up Highway 5 in California, made it to Redding the first day. That was a long day. And as we were sitting around a campfire, we were talking, and I told him, I said, you know, I should have went up the route of the Redwoods. And he told me, and I've known him all my life. We're both turning 60 next year, and I've known him all my life. I didn't know he had never seen the Redwoods.
Okay.
So we were turning 50 at that trip, so I said, you got to see it. It's worth the cutting back, and that's what we did.
That's badass. Okay, so from the point now in Canada, so you're heading up. Once you get up there, what are some of your goals? Now, obviously up there, you're talking about you have northern lights available, you have just amazing wildlife that's available at your disposal. What are some of the things, now this is your second trip, what are some of the things that you're hoping to see this trip that perhaps during the first trip you did not?
Well, the number one thing on my list are the northern lights.
Yeah.
I've been to Alaska and even Canada probably 15, 18 times, and throughout various times of the year, and I've just never seen them. Wow. And I'm really hoping, and I have a tracker on my phone that shows where they're at, and it looks like I'm hitting it at a right time, so fingers crossed.
One of the most, now I've only seen northern, well actually technically I've seen them twice, but one was out of an airplane, but the Lofton Islands in Norway, and it's one of the most majestic, surreal things that you can possibly, you know, I'm thrilled for you. You're going to have so much fun with that. So now you're up there, a complete circle of this trip. What sort of time are you putting aside for this?
5 weeks. I have 5 weeks set aside, and I told my wife, I said, if I'm not back in 5 weeks, I'll make sure to let you know, because I may drag it out a little longer. But 5 weeks it's a long time to be on the road.
Yeah, it is a long. That's a long.
I did it in I took 4 weeks last time I did it, and we did it in about 3.5. Wow. And we were pretty wiped out by the time we got home. So
I think that's a good segue to dive into. So your first trip, you were in a completely different setup than this, correct?
Completely different. I was in a Ford F-250 diesel with a the North Star pop-up trailer or a camper on it, and yeah, it was a big, heavy vehicle. It was a my buddy nicknamed it the Death Star, and that's what it felt like. It was a beast, and it handled fantastic. Everything on that truck handled really well. There was only one thing that failed on it, which was a tire gate or a swing gate that I had built for it for the 37s, because those are hard to find. And it went into the hitch. The welds that the guy had made right as we started the Dalton Highway, which is the last portion up to Prudhoe Bay, the welds broke.
Oh man.
And the tire, everything started leaning, my jerry cans, everything. And I was ready to abandon it on the side of the road because it probably weighed 200 pounds this without anything on it. Yeah. It was heavy. And luckily my friend talked me into, we put the wheel inside the camper until we got to where we were going, and the cans, we kind of made it work.
Yeah.
And found some guys up in Prudhoe Bay that redesigned this for us, re-welded it, put gussets in it. I mean, I actually brought it back to the guy that made it the first time, and he kept it and redesigned his entire product off of what they did. So
cool. So now you have, so when I look at a rig like this, and based on what you had before, you know, we were kind of highlighting on this a moment ago, this makes it a lot more convenient for you once you get to camp. If you need to make a quick trip into town, or you want to do a little recon, have a little fun with your Bronco, you can do that without having to pack up your camp.
Exactly. That's what I'm most excited about. The one thing about the truck was it was so big, and it was so heavy, and it was cumbersome. Trying to take it places just was not convenient. So I'm really looking forward to having that freedom of a smaller vehicle that will still handle the terrain that I'm in and allow me to do just that, just explore during the day. So, which is one of the reasons I made it a 5-week instead of a 4, so that I could actually spend some time instead of just on the road every day.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to shift gears here again, Bob. You know, I absolutely, if you didn't notice my reaction when I saw this rig coming up here, friends, I have to share with you, I'm not a teardrop person. It just really, they never really resonated with me. When I came up here, damn, I was impressed. And yeah, it's hard not to want something like this after you see this. This thing's absolutely badass. This thing changed my mind with regards to teardrops. But we're not going to talk about the trailer first. Let's dive into your Bronco. Now, you moved out of, you had a big ass, badass diesel truck before this. Why the Bronco?
Well, I'm a Ford man. I have been, you know, my dad was carried on with me. I do have some other vehicles that are not Fords. I loved my truck. The Bronco is something I wanted when I was young, and when they came back out with it, I was probably one of the first to put my name on the list. However, I didn't know it. So the first one I saw on the road was the Sport. And once I saw that, I actually took my name off the list. That's just not for me. That's not what I was looking for. Then I saw this, and I have a leasing company, and I talked to my guy that helps us find vehicles. He found this one in Massachusetts.
Wow, that's far away.
Within 24 hours, the deal was done. It was on a transport and on its way to me. So I didn't have to wait on the list. It was exactly what I was looking for, which was even more amazing.
Wow.
I wanted the wild track. I know the Badlands is really made for rock crawling, which I don't do. I like off-roading, but I'm not really into rock crawling. This one is set up more for high-speed desert, or, you know, the stuff that I do.
Yeah.
Just the journeys that we do. So.
Super cool. Yeah, again, it is such an amazing rig. Now, shifting back, now you moved from the pop-up style trailer to a SoCal Teardrop. Now, just the same like I asked you on the Bronco, what was your why for picking up this Teardrop?
So, I had the Bronco, which I got it in October of last year. I had some a health scare back in March, and I was in the hospital, and I went in, had a surgery done, had a procedure done, heart related, and when I came out and I was conscious, the doctor said, "You're good to go, everything's perfect, there's no issues." From the hospital bed, I texted the management of my company. I own a construction company, and I texted my friends and partner, actually, and said, "I just got cleared, I'm going to the Arctic," from the hospital bed. So I've been really planning the trip for years, but really heavily since March.
Yeah.
So I went on the hunt for a trailer that could pull this, or that the Bronco could handle. And I've had a pop-up for me because I do a lot of road travel, and then it's just, I need a place to sleep and I need a place to cook. That was kind of my criteria. I too was not a teardrop guy. I looked at a couple of off-road rigs that were made from Australia, some different things, and the pricing was just, it was insane. It was $80,000, $90,000.
Yeah.
This base model was 28.
Oh,
it started at 28. It was 48 by the time I was done with it, but still, that's half the price.
Yeah.
And then I started, so I did a search. I was at work and did a search on trailers, and they happened to pop up. I don't know how I found them, and I started diving into it, and there was actually very little written about them. I couldn't find a lot of information on them, but I liked what I saw. So my wife and I went on Monday and went to their shop, talked to the owner. He had one. We started walking through it, and I realized, being in the construction industry, I realized the craftsmanship of this was out of this world. I was so impressed with it that day we put our names on. We said, here's the deposit, when we jumped in line. And
that's cool.
Yeah, so that's how I ended up with a teardrop. It really wasn't my goal. I did want something that I could overland with and know that it's going to survive wherever I go. And this one fit the bill.
So one of the things that when you walk up to this thing, you get this big wow factor. You get this, for me, this thing looks like a tank. It looks like it's ready to get, I mean, just really for some serious business. Now, a moment ago, we were talking about your Arctic trip. So between the Bronco and the trailer, were there specific things that you had done to either of these for preparation for this Arctic trip?
There is. So some of the adds that I had done to the trailer, we made sure to size the tires and the hubs the same as the Bronco so that the spares would work from either vehicle on each vehicle, because spares are important up there.
Yeah.
The rock that they have in there is actually sharp, and if you don't air down, you're going to get a puncture or a slice or something. So that was important to me, and there's really no way to carry a second spare on the Bronco, so I made sure I had two spares that would work.
So that's right. So you have a spare on the Bronco, then you have a spare on the back here. Okay.
Right, that are all interchangeable.
Okay. Now it's going to be cold up there. Is there a diesel heater of some sort in here?
It's actually a propane heater, and it has, so it's really a marine grade plywood on the inside. That's what the carriage is made of. There is a layer, it's like a Tyvek type insulation layer, and then it's skinned. But wow. It is, and that's it. But that little heater puts out some serious heat, and it doesn't take much to heat that little cabin up.
So we're T-minus 15 hours away from you getting onto the road. As you've prepped for this, can you expound with us a little bit in terms of how did you exactly prepare for this trip? I mean, 5 weeks out, that's a long time to 500 miles. Like, oh damn, forgot a toothbrush, or So can you walk us through a little bit of your preparation for this?
So having done this trip before, actually, really twice before. Once, like I said, I made it to Calgary, and ended up in the hospital. I had defib. Sorry, not as kind of a sidebar. 2 hours out of Calgary,
damn,
and my heart stopped. And I have a defibrillator. It actually kick-started me again. I called my wife and said, "Hey, I'm driving myself back to the hospital." Ended up in the hospital. Then that's how I ended up going through Banff, coming home that way. But having done it then and back in 2013, I had a pretty good sense of what I needed. So, and I had a lot of the gear already. Even though I had my truck, the gear itself, I actually have a list from 2013, a checklist that I created. So I went back to that list. I made some modifications for this setup, and I just started going down the list and making sure So I went to the Bronco. I took to off-the-grid equipment out over here in Santa Ana, and these guys did a fantastic job. They really did. And my concern was, to be in construction, I know what lead times are right now. Getting equipment, and especially for a brand new vehicle, was not easy. The time that it took. But I knew what I wanted on it, and these guys, they were able to source 90 wow. +% of it and have it in and installed in time, which was really incredible.
Wow, and that just really goes to say a number of episodes back we spoke about how to plan when you get out onto the trip, and putting yourself a checklist together, and just how important, how valuable that is. And when you're out on like a long weekend trip or even a week-long trip, there's a lot of things that go in it. So 5-week trip, boy, between vehicles and everything that you're bringing with you and so forth. Now let's talk about, in terms of redundancy, from you have, how much fuel do you carry with you?
So I have the gas tank on the Bronco is about 22, 23 gallon. It's a small tank.
Sure.
So I do have 4 Rotopacks right now, which are 2 gallons apiece. So there's another 8, and I have 2 more that I'm actually adding after we're done with the interview. So I'll have, one's a 2 and one's a 3. So I'll have 13 gallons with me. The longest stretch that I'll have to go without gas is 250 miles.
Oh, that's bad.
So
okay.
So I know I'm good. I did check that to make sure. There is a road that I'm taking. It used to be you'd have to go 700 miles without wow. gassing up. That was a whole nother.
So how do you do without like the 20 Rotopacks or a long range tank?
Well, in my truck I had put a 50 gallon Kevlar tank in it, and so it would get, even with all the weight on it, it would go. If I took it easy, it would go 500 miles.
Wow.
It actually goes 600 miles. And then I carried jerry cans, the 5-gallon jerry cans. I think I had 2 of those. Yeah, and the trip, there's one last stop before you take this long journey, which is 300 miles for that without gas.
That is so cool.
There's a sign that said, there may not be diesel. It was a sign about this big, handwritten, there may not be diesel on the other end.
That's funny.
And luckily, I said the first thing we're looking for when we get in is gas or diesel. And we found it, so we were good.
You have solar on here.
I do.
So there's this panel right here is how big?
It's 100 watt.
Yep.
And I have a Jackery 1500 with 400 watt panels as well. That I carry. So, and it also has, this has a port where I can plug in and have another panel attached to the trailer.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you're driving, it's charging that.
Exactly.
And I see you have a 5-gallon propane tank here, and the other side is how big?
That's a 10-gallon there, which is a spare, and then I have a 10-gallon up in the front cage, which is a spare.
Okay, so you have 25 gallons.
25 gallons. And when I did the trip the last time, again, the cab was bigger that I was trying to heat, and I had one 20-gallon tank, and that 20-gallon tank lasted me the entire trip.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, and this is smaller, and it's just me. So, and there is places to get, I can refuel them up there if need be.
For the audience here that is watching this and may be considering or aspire to take a similar trip, what advice can you give to them on this?
Do a lot of research. Figure out where you're going. Do a lot of research. YouTube is such a wonderful tool. It's actually, I love your videos. I learn a lot from them. And there are a few for the road that I'm taking. There's not as many as I thought, but they were great information. And I would, my biggest thing is do research. Just know what you're getting into. Know what what to be prepared for. Like, I know the time of year that I'm going, it's the rainy season, so there's going to be a lot of mud. The one thing that happens is lights will get caked and you can't see lights anymore.
Wow.
So I have, spray, I have a squeegee, I have stuff to keep all the lights clear. And keep things visible. It's amazing.
Will you see snow this round?
Probably not, but there is a chance. So that's the other thing is, the further north you get, the more unpredictable the weather is. And you've got to be prepared for it. So, and which I am. I was ready for it. Last time I went in May. So I was kind of coming into the summer, went early May, and this time I'm kind of on the other side of summer in September. I'll be there for the month of September. I know I'm going to hit a storm. I'll probably see snow. It won't be enough to cause any problems, I don't think. If it does, then I hunker down and wait it out.
Something tells me you're prepared for that.
I'm ready for it.
Well, Bob, thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule and joining us here today. And friends, you know what time it is. Look, we put videos like this together to help you stay inspired, plant ideas of getting out and creating your own adventures. Now, if you found some value with this video, friends, do me a favor, crush that like button down below, hit that subscribe button. If you want to have notifications, well, there's that little bell down there. When you hit that bell, YouTube's going to do its whole notification thing, and so anytime we have a new video, including perhaps the next subsequent video with Bob here, YouTube's going to notify you. Well, that said, friends, it's that time of the video where I'm going to turn off these cameras so you get out there, stay healthy, and find your adventure.
Well, Alex, here I am. I made it to Dawson City, about 500 miles from reaching the Arctic Ocean. There's been some adventures along the way. The rig is held up great, but yeah, lots of stories to tell and more to make. So I'll talk to you on the other side. Have a good one. Thank you.